On the morning of my wedding, I gazed into the mirror, my white gown fanning out like a soft mist I believed would sweep me toward joy. My fingers trembled as I adjusted my veil. It wasn't the thought of marrying David that made me anxious. He was my rock, my one true haven in a world that often saw me as a burden. My nerves stemmed from a lingering hope that my family might finally show me affection. For weeks, I'd mailed them invitations and even visited my parents' home with my fiancé, pleading for their presence. Dad lounged in his chair, a beer can sweating onto the rug, and scoffed. "Why would we spend a Saturday watching you pretend to be a bride?" he mocked. "Your sister's high school reunion is that day. That's something worth caring about. Please subscribe to my channel and share in the comments where you're watching from." Mom laughed as if it were the best joke she'd ever heard, her long nails jabbing at me as she added, "A wedding without style is just two nobodies signing a contract. What's there to celebrate? You're not worth the fuel to get there." My sister, Madison, joined in, flaunting the diamond necklace Dad had gifted her. "Picture everyone staring at you in that tacky dress. Humiliating. If you had any brains, you'd call it off." Stunned, I let the invitation slip from my grasp. David's hand tightened on my shoulder, his anger barely contained. My family no longer bothered to mask their cruelty. They didn't just refuse, they ridiculed me for even asking. Yet, deep inside, I clung to the hope they'd reconsider. I told myself they might show up at the ceremony, maybe sit quietly in the back, clapping as we kissed. That faint hope got me dressed that morning. The chapel shimmered with candlelight, the air fragrant with flowers David's mother had lovingly arranged. His family filled the pews, cousins, aunts, uncles, all beaming at me with genuine warmth. But the right side of the church, reserved for my family, sat empty, row after row of gleaming wood mocking me. The officiant murmured, "Should we wait a bit longer?" I nodded, my throat constricting. I stared at the doors, willing them to open, picturing my parents strolling in late, feigning care. But the doors stayed still. My phone buzzed in the clutch beside me, a text from Mom. With shaking hands, I opened it. "Don't make a fool of yourself for us. We're at your aunt's for a family barbecue. Madison's telling everyone how pitiful you looked begging us to come. It's hilarious. Good luck with your little event." My breath caught, my chest collapsing under the weight of her words. My wedding day, the one moment I thought they couldn't ignore, had become their punchline at a backyard cookout. David touched my hand, his eyes blazing with anger, but also pity. A pity that stung worse than my parents' cruelty. I didn't want his sympathy. I wanted him to see my strength. But those empty seats screamed that my family saw me as nothing more than disposable, their mockery laid bare. As I walked down the aisle alone, my veil hid the tears that wouldn't stop. The photographer angled shots to hide the vacant pews, but I knew the truth would always haunt me. When David said, "I do," I forced a smile through my tears. In that moment, something inside me shattered, not just from heartbreak, but from fury. As guests clapped and music swelled, I glared at those empty seats and whispered a vow. They think today means nothing. I'll make them regret every moment they missed. The reception hall should have echoed with joy, clinking glasses, and the hum of two families uniting. Instead, under the warm glow of string lights, every toast from David's relatives highlighted the silence on my side. I smiled courteously, but inside my blood boiled. Each raised glass and cheer of "to the bride and groom" conjured images of Mom smirking as she loaded her plate at the barbecue. Dad toasting not me, but Madison's tales of my lone walk down the aisle. During our first dance, David whispered, "They don't deserve you. Let them go." But how could I? Letting go was all I'd done my whole life. Pretending their words didn't wound, their favoritism didn't crush me. This wasn't about letting go, it was public shame. Every guest saw those empty seats, the absence louder than any applause. As we drove away, tin cans clattering behind David's car, his family waved and shouted blessings. But in the rearview mirror, I saw only those empty chairs mocking me. That night, in the small cabin David rented for our honeymoon, I sat on the bed, still in my gown. My phone buzzed again, another text from Mom. "Did you actually go through with it? Poor guy. He doesn't know what he's stuck with. We did him a favor by not showing up. Madison says you look desperate, waiting there. Wish we could have seen it." Tears blurred the screen, but my hands were steady now. I realized they didn't just hurt me, they relished it, thriving on my pain. David gently took my phone, his jaw clenching as he read the message. "You don't need them," he said softly. But I reclaimed my phone. I needed those words, not to beg for their love, but to etch into my memory the moment I stopped being their victim. Weeks passed, and I tried to embrace married life. David was patient, but I knew he felt powerless. This wasn't a wound he could shield me from. It was years of being told I was worthless, cemented by their betrayal on my wedding day. My parents didn't stop. They'd call not to check on me, but to gloat. Madison got a promotion. "She earned it, unlike you." Or, "Your wedding must have been tiny." Good thing his family showed up. Each word was a blade, twisted with delight. I'd hang up and sit in silence, staring at the walls of our small apartment. The anger grew, louder than the fridge's hum, sharper than the shadows at night. Memories I'd buried resurfaced. Dad stepping over me as a child, muttering, "Get up, trash." Mom telling relatives, "Madison's our star." The other one, "Well, she tries." The wedding wasn't the start, it was the final proof. They never saw me as their daughter, only as a punchline, a servant to their golden child. One night, as David slept, I sat at the kitchen table, my reflection in a half-empty glass of water looking fiercer, stronger. I whispered, "They laughed at my wedding day, but I'll give them something they can't laugh off." That night, revenge became more than a thought. It became a promise, tangible, something they'd feel, something to strip away their smug comfort. For the first time, I felt at peace. 6 months after the wedding, my parents' taunts continued, piercing the fragile calm David and I had built. Every few days, a new jab reminded me I was the garbage they swept aside. Then came the call. Mom's voice dripped with false sweetness. "Madison's engagement party is next month. We'll need money from you. Your wedding was such a letdown, so the least you can do is help pay for her big night." My nails dug into the table as I stayed silent. Mom laughed, sharp and vicious. "Don't pout. Think of it as being useful for once. You'll never be celebrated, but you can at least fund someone who matters." She hung up before I could speak. That night, I didn't cry or rage. I sat with a notebook, listing every insult, every slight, every time they turned away. When I wrote about the wedding, the empty chairs, the cruel texts, I underlined it heavily and wrote one word in bold: payback. I started small. Madison's fiancé worked at a corporate law firm. Quiet research revealed his sloppy handling of a major case. I didn't expose him directly. Instead, I made anonymous calls, passed evidence to the opposing side, just enough to sow doubt. By month's end, his reputation was tarnished, whispers spreading through his office. Madison's perfect engagement lost its shine. My parents, though, were trickier. Their weakness wasn't work, it was their obsession with image. They craved the world's view of them as proud, successful parents. So, one Sunday I showed up uninvited to their backyard dinner, the grill sizzling as guests sipped wine. The chatter stopped as I stepped in. Mom's smile stiffened, Dad's beard nearly fell. "Well," I said loudly, scanning the crowd, "meet the parents of the year. Let me share what they were up to on my wedding day while their seats sat empty." Gasps spread as I recounted the barbecue, the texts, their laughter. Mom hissed, "You little viper." I cut her off. "Viper? At least a viper knows loyalty. You wouldn't know it if it choked you." Dad reached for my arm, but I pulled free. "Careful," I said, my voice low but sharp enough for all to hear. "Touch me again, and I'll tell them how you stepped over your bleeding daughter, because Madison's shopping bags mattered more." The silence was heavy. Guests shifted, one setting down a glass with a sharp clink. For the first time, I saw fear in my parents' eyes, not of physical harm, but of their perfect facade crumbling before their neighbors. I wasn't finished. 2 weeks later, at Madison's engagement party, the one they demanded I fund, I walked in with an envelope. Inside were financial records showing how my parents had drained joint accounts I'd contributed to for 9 years, debts I'd paid, vacations they'd enjoyed, all while mocking me. I didn't shout. I placed the envelope before Madison's fiancé's parents, known for their high morals. This, I said calmly, is who you're joining your family to. People who'd betray their own daughter, abandon her wedding, and drain her while laughing. The room exploded. Madison yelled. Her fiancé's parents demanded answers, and Mom tried to grab the papers. I didn't stay for the chaos. I walked into the night, my steps light. By morning, calls flooded in. The engagement was postponed indefinitely. Neighbors stopped coming to Sunday dinners. Dad's country club job vanished amid rumors. Mom's social circle dissolved, invitations ceasing. Madison stopped sharing her perfect life online. My parents called repeatedly, first with fury, then desperation. Fix this, Dad demanded. No, I said calmly. You're just strangers who taught me cruelty over love. Now live with the lessons you taught me. I hung up. For the first time, the weight lifted, not from spiteful destruction, but from reclaiming the power they'd stolen. They thought my wedding day humiliation would break me. Instead, it sparked their downfall. And this time they weren't laughing. Please subscribe to my channel and share in the comments where you're watching from.